Welcome back to another TARISLAND video. I've filmed a podcast style discussion about the game with 889. I'll leave all of his channel links and stuff in the description down below. And we've cut it up into like little different sections to make various different videos as we talk about all the different parts of the game that we enjoy so far or don't enjoy, or things we want to see improved, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, let us know what you think in the comment section down below if you like this style of content, almost like a mini podcast style. Yeah, comment section down below for all that kind of stuff. If you like the kind of content that we're talking about as well, or even if you massively disagree, feel free to drop a like on the video, subs, all that kind of stuff, and we'll keep making more content. Yeah, if you want to carry on the discussion further as well about TARISLAND and watch me play the game live, I stream over on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday and Sunday around about 5 or 6 p.m. BST UK time. But yeah, class variation. I know you were big on this one before we started this. So what do you think about the variation in classes in TARISLAND?
I feel you've got endless amounts of classes, right? So you've got 3 healers, bards, priests, and phantom necros. You've got 2 or 3 tanks with like barbarian fighters, paladins, and there's another one if I remember rightly. Is it warrior, which is the 3rd sort of tank, and then obviously loads of DPSs, and everyone can do DPSs. You've got 2 different ways that you can go with each class. So you've got the tank and a tank and damage, or healer and damage, or the damage classes have got 2 different sort of variations within the way that they can do damage. The only thing that I've just recently started to notice, and this is now playing like a damage class with a hunter, which they're not called a hunter though, are they? They're
Ranger, I think.
Ranger, that's the one. I do at times feel as if I'm just kind of playing my Phantom Necro, but as a damage dealer. I've got 1 AoE spell on my Phantom Necro. I've got 1 AoE ability on the Hunter. You have like a damage over time ability, and I have a damage over time ability, and then you have 1 big damage ability. You have like, they're very much the same. There's no like, it's not like, oh well, we've got a ranger in our group, so that means I could then drop this ability and pick something else up, because I don't need to do that, because they're going to be the one that takes full control over that. And like, you know, it is very sort of, everyone is very much the same. And I think even playing on my paladin as well, when I think of it, when I go into, well, in both specs really, like when I play as a tank, I've still got that 1 AoE ability, and I've got that. Again, do you see what I mean? They're very sort of lineal. I know that you've sort of touched on a few different classes, mainly working on your mage, but do you notice that at all with the classes that you've played? I
do. So I've not played as many as you. I've got the obviously my main is the mage, which I'm not actually enjoying as much. I do want to switch eventually, but sometimes it's a bit hard when that's your main and you're fully geared up and you can join all high end game raids, whereas on your secondary character you can't. So I played the bard on the second one. I want to go full heals, and then I've done a tiny bit of the barbarian. I need to level that up. But you are right in the sense that so your main 3 skills on the left hand side, top left hand side, like they're kind of like your utility abilities, aren't they? And I feel like they've made them really balanced. So like you said, everybody gets like either a teleport or a speed up run mechanic, so you can get out of all the dodging mechanics in dungeons. Everyone kind of gets like a self heal or like a self shield and stuff like that. So I think they've done it to try and make it balanced in terms of generic play, and then also in PvP. If there's certain classes who can't do, you know, interrupts or whatever in PvP, then you won't find people play those classes, because if you're constantly getting interrupted with interrupt skills from classes that can and you can't, you're going to eventually just stop playing those classes. So I think they've tried to make it balanced, so everybody, even though it's not exactly the same, I think some classes have like speed up running mechanics, whereas I get like my my teleports. It's the same result, but it just works slightly different. I think that's why they've done it, is the point I'm trying to make. I think they tried to make it balanced, so then in PvP you don't ditch 3, 4, 5 classes because, oh, they don't have a spell interrupt, so don't use them, they're rubbish. Like, you know, I think they tried to make it balanced, which is fine. But then, like you said on class diversity, does it make it as fun playing multiple classes when some of them kind of do the same thing?
Yeah, and this is where I've only played 1 damage class, so I'm not able to see it across all damage classes, whether it's like and again, I've only played one healer and I've only played one tank, so I don't see the diversity between the specific types of class, if that makes sense. So like, you know, you've got a bard healer and I've got a phantom necro healer. Like, do they pretty much do the same heals? I don't know. I've not played them both, so I can't sort of say with that. But I would like to think that they're quite diverse and they offer differences within what they do. And the same with the tanks. Like, I'd hope that the tanks are different, and that you play the game slightly differently, and maybe with future content you start to see it where you're doing raids and you need a paladin tank and a warrior tank. You need one of each. You can't just play with any. You know, you need to utilize them in different ways. Does that make sense? Like the variation needs to be utilized rather than just being different by name and look. Like, it needs to actually sort of count for something. I do agree as well. I think TARISLAND just need to find like the balance, because, sorry to go back to New World again, but it's the best example I can give you. In New World, with their class system or weapon system as it is, in certain dungeons, obviously it's a little bit different, so the mobs receive more damage depending on what type of damage you're using, so what class you're playing. And in certain dungeons, let's say it's a 5-man group, you start up, and if you want to do the most amount of damage and complete that dungeon as quickly as possible, you need to use, for example, your specific tank has to use 2 weapons, your healer has to use 2 weapons, and your 3 DPS, they have to use 3 main weapons, but specific ones. And if they use something completely different, let's say you go into a Genesis dungeon and you want to take a fire mage or an ice mage, they will not do as much damage as somebody who's playing, say, greatsword or sword and shield or whatever. So they've done it in a poor way on New World, where if you just happen to love your specific weapons in your class and it's not meta, you don't get into dungeon runs. It's just unfortunate. It doesn't matter how good you can make that class. You know, you get your skills perfectly timed or you buff your gear as best as you can. You just don't perform as good as specific other classes in the game. Whereas in TARISLAND, I think they've made it so if you absolutely nail your class, let's say in DPS wise, you are going to do almost just as much damage as everybody else, apart from when you're doing AoE and non-AoE. Some classes don't do much AoE, some classes do. But other than that, because I've had it where I've been massively outperformed damage wise by a specific class, and I've heard somebody go to me, oh yeah, they play this class, that's why they're beating you. And I'm like, okay. But then also a couple of raids later, I'll be level with that same class or above, and that just so happens that they've not buffed the gear as much as I have, or they've not got their skill rotation as much as I have. So you can still be competitive in this game. So I think it's just a balancing act, is what I'm trying to say. And going with, obviously, your knowledge of New World is sort of like my knowledge of World of Warcraft. So going back to sort of, and this is earlier days, I don't know what World of Warcraft's like now, but you would have certain raids where you would need hunters, you would need rogues, because they would be able to lay traps, or they would be able to sap the enemy, so the enemies would sort of not be able to move or be, you know, crippled or whatever. Like, I just don't feel there is that need within TARISLAND for the classes. There isn't, like I said earlier, you don't think, oh, we've got a ranger, so what we can do is we can get them to go over there and like set a trap so that the mob gets stuck in the trap and can't come over and get involved in the fight. I don't feel that there is that need. Does that make sense? Like, there's not that. They don't offer that. But then, is it needed in TARISLAND? Not really, for the way that the raids run out and the dungeons run out. It's quite. There's not loads of trash. There's not loads of mobs spawning. There's not loads of, you know, it is quite one-on-one battles with the bosses and making sure you work around the mechanics. So maybe, you know, with the way that they've built that and the way that the classes are built, then yeah, that probably is what they were looking for and why it works, I guess.
Yeah, they're just trying to make it as inclusive as possible. I've never joined, so when you use matchmaking, I've never joined a raid, for example, then somebody's gone, oh shit, it's a mage who's joined, sorry mate, we don't need a mage, like, can you leave, we need and then insert another DPS class, which I think is a good thing. It means if you main one specific class and you don't really want to play another one, you're not really excluded anywhere. Obviously you're excluded in terms of how many in that raid, you know, DPS are needed, tanks are needed, healers are needed. But so long as you are a damage dealer and you do good damage, you can almost play in any dungeon. There's one small dungeon I can remember off the top of my head though, the Merfolk Swamp. So there's I think the last boss in there, again, this is very, very minor, but like 2 of these small ads spawn periodically through the final boss fight, and you can just basically they walk towards this kind of like spire, if you like, and if they damage that spire, loads of mobs come out, and you most of the time you wipe. So the mechanic there is to slow them down and then kill those 2 mobs before they get there. So you could say you need specific characters who have like slowdown skills maybe, or just insane high burst DPS to make sure they go down. But again, it's very, very minor. You are right. You don't need, like, nobody's going to say, oh, we need a mage because they've got like a like a slowdown skill, you know. But that's the closest I can think of where TARISLAND are put in the game. Yeah, here's some mechanics where, okay, you've either got to burst it down or you slow down the mob before it gets there and then kill it a little bit slower. I think they're just trying to be inclusive. I think they're trying to make it so you don't pick a specific class and then everyone's like, that class is trash, get out my raid, get out my group. Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, there's no classes there where you need that class in order to sort of progress like you do in New World, you do in World of Warcraft. But the good thing about, again, if you're considering playing this game, you don't need to worry too much about the class you pick. Just pick one, nail it in terms of like your skill rotations, understanding what, you know, attributes you need to level up and what gear you need, and there or thereabouts you'll be included in, you know, all the group content. You won't be sort of like ostracized because you picked the shitty class.
Yeah, and I think the final bit for this is the Phantom Necro was actually released for the release of the game worldwide. I don't know if you know that, or whether that's what. So when the game was out in China, the Phantom Necro wasn't actually included in the game, and it got released when the game went worldwide, I believe. So they are obviously looking at releasing new characters and new classes and things. So who knows what we're going to see coming forward. It is still season 0. We've got probably many seasons ahead. Yeah, I think maybe we could see quite a few new types of classes released as seasons go on. But for class variation, yeah, you've got multiple different types of characters you can play, loads of different types of things that you can do. Yeah, I'm going to leave it here with just anyone who's joining the game, make sure you make a tank.
yeah, please make tanks. There's no tanks in this game, like every MMO. I agree, please make a tank.